You all say that we, the anti-federalists, are disorganized. But there are a few points that I'm sure that most of us can agree on. Power corrupts, elites are power hungry, and we need to amend the Constitution that already exists. I do not see a need for this new form of government, just fixing the one that we have. Power corrupts. For the past 10 years, we've had a loose confederation of states. Yes, it's had its issues, but at least we're free. We've been under control of a centralized power before. We fought a war to gain our freedom. Why would we put ourselves back into a similar situation? The federal government will grow and suppress state government. We've seen numerous examples of this in the past. Once someone gets a taste for power, they have a tendency to become selfish and greedy, wanting more until they control it all. Not to mention the addition to taxes. That will come along with this new government. We'd have our money go to the federal government as well as the state government. With the money that they will collect, it will allow them to extend their power and increase their control. Elites are power hungry. Putting elites in charge of our government can lead to them leading a government for themselves, not the people. The best form of government is people representing themselves on a local level. If we have a problem with our government, we can impeach. Sounds great. Sounds amazing. However, don't fail to notice that in these impeachment trials, the Senate is in charge of the vote. That means that ultimately, it will never be us, the people, in charge of impeachment. It will be our senators. Some may like to point out that 1/3 of the Senate is elected every 2 years, which will help have a variety of minds in the Senate. This is true. However, that also means that 2/3, the majority, of the Senate is in a fixed position every election. This 2/3 will always have a majority and be subject to corruption. We already have a constitution. Within this constitution that we already possess is our liberties and our privileges. Think long and hard before you support this new constitution that may result in us having to give up our privileges forever. As we are now, these freedoms consist of freedom of speech, right to trial, freedom of press, right to hold yourself, your house, your papers, and possessions from free of search and seizure without a warrant. The Constitution that we already have contains state governments, a more locally run government. This allows for the people of the state to be more involved with the government and closer to it. A centralized government would be so far removed from the people that it's reasonable to assume that our liberties and rights would be out of our hands and within an elitist's. I, an anti-federalist, oppose this new constitution. I stand for the states, for the power of the people. The government should not be so centralized. If we're going to have democracy, the democracy should be run locally by the people. It's the best way to keep our liberty. We're humans, and humans are always subject to corruption. Even with the checks and balances in place for this new form of government, there's still so much power within the hands of such few men. At the end of the day, I'm just someone who's afraid of losing my liberty and all that we've all worked so hard for. This centralized form of government seems like a gateway to tyranny. It's easy to change freedom to tyranny, but just remember, it's very hard to change tyranny back to freedom. We should know this more than anyone.